We're looking at a Q1 forecast, and the forecast for Mateo is $6 million. This system allows you to have a highly configurable forecast. If you want, you can be forecasting a period of a year or a quarter or a month. And when you drill into this forecast, we further allow the forecast to be segmented into different buckets. So for instance, here's our product hierarchy, which is in levels deep. And we can break out this quarterly forecast for all products into the monthly buckets or weekly buckets or 554, which is a special type of fiscal financial calendar. Our forecast buckets roll up from the forecast items. And here we can see that we've forecasted a set of items that the rep has included. Everything in green is what the rep has included in the forecast. And everything in yellow is items that the rep has not included in the forecast, but AI has predicted that the rep will still win. And so the way we roll this up is every item that is in green gets rolled up into the forecast bucket and the predicted upside bucket. But any deal that is forecasted by the AI engine to close, but that the rep doesn't think is going to close, does not count towards the forecast, the sales rep's forecast. It only counts towards the predicted upside. So the forecast equals anything the rep thinks is going to close, and the predicted upside includes both what the rep thinks will close and what the AI engine predicts will also close. And that way the reps don't need to mess with the forecast category, best case, worst case, commit. The AI engine will just simply predict what the maximum upside is, and is normally much more accurate than sales reps. We can come over to see how these items roll up for all the different subordinates. So here we have a set of territories. Now for smaller organizations, we can synchronize the resource hierarchy over to the territory hierarchy. And then each territory name is the same as the rep name, Lisa Jones, Julian Henderson. So for smaller organizations, there's no need to set up territories if you just want to enable forecasting. Forecasting will quite simply work, and you don't need to set up the territories. But for more sophisticated organizations, what we do support is the ability to have matrix rollups. For instance, one of our customers will forecast both up the prime rep hierarchy, as well as they'll forecast up the manufacturing plants so that they can see how much revenue each manufacturing plant is generating. And the way we achieve that is we can come over to see the underlying opportunities that comprise the forecast. If I were to drill into annual maintenance, which is rolling up under the sales rep Helena Sprague, for instance, I can see the deal is forecasted at $135,000. Drilling into the deal, I'll see that there's a line there for $270,000. And this line has been split. So we've got a 50-50 credit split going on between Helena and Ralph. And these items are rolling up the different forecasts. We also have a $270,000 overlay credit going to Gary Johnson. In addition, we have a separate line here. And because we can set up our territories to automatically assign based on product, we're able to automatically assign the sales credit of this particular line to somebody else entirely. And that way we can support some fairly sophisticated matrix rollups. Coming back to the forecast, we have the ability to see that the forecast has changed for my overall forecast. So last month, the manager Mateo forecasted 5 million. This month, the forecast went up to 6 million. But there's one person who's down. Lisa Jones isn't looking too good. Her forecast is down $500,000. So we can actually drill into that and see a little more detail. We can come over to the forecast items and see, for just focusing on Lisa's forecast items, what the forecast items are telling us. Now, here we can see that Lisa isn't quite expected to make her quota, but the AI is predicting that this cloud computing deal is going to close. And that's got a pretty big upside of $500,000. So if the AI is right, she'll probably make her numbers. In addition, we can see these little indicators here. And one of the options is to be able to see all the snapshots. And so we can, for this deal that has recently closed, we can view to see how it's changed. We can see on January, in the January snapshot, it was forecasted at 45,000. February, it went up to 455,000. And in March, it went back down to 162,000. So this is one of the reasons why Julian's forecast went down. is that nothing else went up, and this deal was significantly reduced in value when it closed. After talking to Julian, we might determine that one of the lines out of this opportunity is not likely to close. And so we can make adjustments by pulling in items from the future periods. We can adjust the amounts, quantity, forecast, etc. And we can simply drop an item that we don't think is going to make it into this quarter. Maybe it'll slip out into the next quarter. We can quickly make these adjustments by simply clicking on Remove. And then that $600 predicted upside is now going to be removed from the quarterly predicted upside bucket when we click Save. We can also, if we wanted to, take a look at the next quarter's forecast. So we can quickly pivot over and see what the forecast would look like for Q2. I'm going to switch over to my sales planning system. Now, sales planning, we support the ability to do sales planning both through the web interface as well as through Excel. I can access the same information in Excel. So here I'm showing the Excel interface, and we're going to do some advanced forecasting within the sales planning module. I can see that I've got my last year's bookings loaded into the system. So I've pulled all my data from ERP. I can see my quotas, and my current year booking is kind of low, of course, because I'm in March, 1st of March, and my predicted revenue doesn't quite look right. So I'm going to run some predictions. I come over to my prediction data, and I can see for my sales reps that the system has leveraged the ERP data. So here we see the ERP seasonal trend for Peter, the rep, as well as we've augmented it with some pipeline data. And then the system has automatically determined what the best statistical methodology is to predict the future for Peter. And we can see that Peter has a tendency to sell the most at the end of each quarter. The last day of each quarter is when he sells the most, week 13, for instance. And then it's really the second to last week of the year where he sells most of his revenue. And so the system has picked up on this strong seasonal trend in its historical numbers and is using it to predict the FY19 revenue that he's likely to book, along with the best case, worst case 95% certainty bands. And I can flip over to another sales rep, Marilyn Ritchie, and see what her forecast looks like as well. The system is actually analyzing 80 different statistical methods to pick the best fitting statistical method for each sales rep based on their unique selling patterns. And in this case, the Marilyn Ritchie doesn't quite have the typical peak that you'd expect to see for week 13. So we can augment the prediction with our own judgment if we so choose. And we can also see some additional statistics about the prediction, such as the statistical method that the machine intelligently selected, as well as the predicted accuracy of that statistical method. Once we're happy with what either the prediction says or the data that we've augmented it with, we can paste the prediction back into the planning results and then push this data up into the sales planning cloud. And by submitting this data, we can then leverage it from the perspective of the forecast. So coming back to my forecast, I can see that this predicted revenue is still a little low. I just simply need to refresh my predicted revenue to see what my new overall predicted revenue is and how that compares with my overall target. So I can see that my predicted revenue is almost going to get me to hit the target. It's just inkling below the target, which is looking pretty good. And the predicted attainment for all my reps, a couple of my reps are looking pretty good, and Carl Douglas might need a little bit of help. I can also see the predicted compensation for each of the reps based on the predicted attainment and the known quarterly targets that they have. We can further compare the target to the predicted revenue as well as the CX, pipeline and forecast commit data, and get a sense as to how much of the revenue is already closed, how much of it is going to come from existing deals, how much of it is going to come from new deals, and what the likely revenue change would be. I can then further triangulate my forecast for accuracy by taking a look at the forecast commit, the gross pipe, and making further adjustments to the predicted revenue if I so choose. And that's how we achieve a more accurate forecast with both the CX Engagement Cloud's native forecasting capabilities and the advanced forecasting functions within sales planning. The key differentiators is that we have a full 5 years of history. We allow item adjustments and item snapshots and predictions based on actuals in Excel. Thanks.